number of viewers. Okay, we've started the Hangout, so it's live. 0 viewers at the moment.
I just tweeted it out. All right. Yeah, see, I don't get the count. Maybe you do, because I'm not the moderator. Anyway.
Yeah, I wonder if I can change.
Is anyone watching so we know if at least it's working?
Not at the moment. 0 viewers. I'm
going on YouTube and seeing if it's live. It is
1
live.
viewer.
It is
Here we
live.
go.
Okay, we're good. Well, that was me, actually. I just
right.
loaded up that URL.
Cool. That's right. You're the viewer.
I was the viewer.
Welcome. Thanks for watching.
Are there any other viewers? Let's just wait a second here to see if this is working.
Yeah, 5. There's some people trickling in now.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. Well, for those who are joining us for the first time or back again, we used to do these, Nathan and I used to do these every day for a few months, I think. We kind of made it, maybe. And it's called Work in Progress. And the whole idea behind this is that we're just going to talk about work, product development work, business work, the stuff we would normally talk about here in the office together if we're working together on something or have a point of view. It's like just the real thing. And so we're back. And so we're probably going to try and do these once a week. We used to do them every day. Once a week we'll work, and we'll give that a shot. So today is the first one back. So it's great to be back. Looking forward to, we haven't really caught up really that much in person either for a while. So this will be fun.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming back. So yeah, what are you working on? What do you want to chat about?
Yeah. What are we doing? We're a few weeks away from some big Basecamp stuff we're launching, which we've been working on for the past 8 weeks or so. It's a pretty big change for us. We're doing some business model changes. We're making some significant product improvements around some structure, the way we're structuring the product. We're simplifying a few things. We're adding some big stuff. So this is like a big bundle of work, which is not typically what we do. We typically will do like smaller chunks of work and roll them out. And this is a bigger chunk of work that's actually going to take a little bit longer than 8 weeks. We're probably going to be a full 10 weeks into it or so by the time we launch it. But a few months ago, I had this idea that I thought that we should be integrating more of our own patterns into the product. So we've been doing this workshop at our office called the Basecamp Way to Work once a month or so here and there. And where we basically put our Basecamp account up on the screen and show people how we work. And, we fill up our theater. We have 37 seats. We sell it every time. People show up. We talk. It's about 3 or 4 hours. I think we're 5 hours this next one we're doing. And it's interesting because people watch it and they talk with us. And at the end, they're like, that's not what I thought Basecamp was. Like, I've never seen anyone use Basecamp like this before. Like,
oh, weird.
This isn't just for projects. This is running you guys run your whole company on this. Like all your internal communications, all your teams communicate, all your project work. And it's been sort of second nature to us, but we realized that we weren't really giving people, the product did not encourage the kind of usage that we were using it for. And so we've decided now to really bake our own patterns into the product, show people how we use it, give them the framework to use it, give them the structure to use it the way we use it, and give people some more guidance. So that's a big part of the product changes, and we're changing some business model stuff as well, which we can talk about too. But I don't want to dominate the talk, but that was the big thing. So it's kind of exciting. And actually, I thought we could I could share a screen and show some of that fundamental stuff if you want to look at that.
Totally, let's do it. Because it's a big, what you're discussing too is like a big pain point I think we have too that we're trying to figure out, which is helping people kind of find the right use cases and find the right way, the golden path, the right way to do things. There's so many ways to do something. It's just too intimidating too often. And we have figured out internally how to use Highrise to do, say, run a job application process. We just finished a job application process. We get hundreds of emails. How do you go through all of that? How do you get feedback on each job applicant and do the interviews? And Highrise is great for that, but I don't think people realize that when they turn something like this on. So we're trying to figure this out too. So yeah, let's see it.
Yeah, cool. Let me shift here between tabs and try and share my screen here and see how this goes. So let's see, share screen, entire screen. Okay. All right, let me know when you see it.
I think we're good.
So this is the new home screen, basically for Basecamp, and I should probably show some before and afters, but I'd have to open. Actually, let me open another tab and show you sort of the differences here. So this is the current version of Basecamp. Is basically there's a menu at the top here that says Basecamps, and inside that menu is a collection of all the different Basecamps or projects in our account, and I've got many of them, right? But amongst these Basecamps are a few really key ones. So we've got the Basecamp, what we call Basecamp HQ, which is really our sort of our fundamental. It's our basically our company intranet. It's all company-wide communication, all announcements, all big picture stuff, things that are not related to a project, not related to a team, but like company stuff happens in here. Then we've got some individual projects for work we're doing. Then we've got some teams, Chicago team, C's, a few different teams. So we've got like company, teams, and projects. They're all in the same menu. They're all mixed together, and they're undifferentiated in the product today. Yet,
Yeah.
the use cases are there, but we're not showing it. So anyway, that's kind of how it is today. And what we've done is we've gotten rid of that Basecamp menu at the top. And now we have 3 groupings. We've got your company HQ at the top. And if you don't have one, we're now going to make one for you. So your company HQ, and I can show this in a second, but it's where all the company-wide stuff happens. We've also elevated a few other things like My Stuff, which used to be behind a menu up here. Now it's just right in front of you. The things you're assigned, the bookmarks, and any drafts. You can also upload your company logo. And then we have a block for teams. So teams are things that are like long-running permanent groups. Our Chicago office is a team. The iOS group is a team. Marketing is a team. Research and Fidelity is a team. Team OMG is a team. These are only the ones I'm currently following. Designers is a team. And so these are teams. These are not projects that start and end. These are perpetual spaces and places for these teams to work together on things that are cross-cutting. It's not about a particular project. It's about their job, basically what they do.
Yeah.
And then below this, we have projects. And these are all the things that start and end, individual projects that we're working on, either improving the product or improving the company or whatever it might be. And we have a lot of them going on at any one time. But the idea is that there's basically these 3 groupings now. And so this is encouraging a particular pattern of usage that before you had to figure out on your own if you were even able to. But the product really gave you no clues or guidelines to work in a certain way. And one of the things we always hear from people is like, how do you guys do it? Or like, what's the right way to use this? And this is exactly how we work. And so now we've built that into the product for everyone to work this way, if they choose, of course. If you don't want to, you can go up to settings here and like turn teams off or turn the HQ off. Like you don't have to have all these groupings, but we're gonna give everyone the groupings because we think this is a really wonderful way to work. And so anyway, this is like one of many of the major changes that are coming shortly. And we're feeling really good about it. Been working on it for a while, and it's sort of going to set the tone for a variety of other things we're going to be able to do next year.
Makes a lot of sense. Oh, that's interesting. And so is creating a project, is it different? Are the attributes different at all when you create these different things?
Yeah. So
when you create a team versus a project?
Yeah. So currently, barely, but this is going to set the stage for some significant differences down the road. One of the differences is it currently is if you create a team, you name it right here. You just hit name and you've created it, right? Like, so like, we'll call it like Nate and Jason or whatever, right? I'll just, whatever. So boom, I just created Nate and Jason, and there it is. I didn't get an option to pick a client because teams don't have clients. Teams are just like your own team. So let me just delete this really quick. And then go back. If you create a project, it's a little bit different. It's like, work in progress. And then it says like, is this for a client? Yes. If so, who? And so you have a little bit more, you can set it up in a way for a client, and then you get the client side feature. So projects have the client side feature, teams do not. That's the primary distinction right now. There's some slight differences amongst the way some of the tools are set up by default for these different things. But right now, it's a very minimal set of differences. Over time, though, it's going to like give us this opportunity now to fine tune the different use cases for teams versus projects versus your company. So like this is about immediately providing a coherent structure and separation and organization. And then it's also a launching point for building on top of the differences as we move across or move forward in time.
Totally. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I kind of already, I think, know the answer to this, but I'm sure some people are kind of interested in this. But like, what is the rollout strategy to this? Like, you put these thoughts together. What,
I'll come back.
How did you go about getting feedback yet from people on it? Or, are you going to roll this out all right away? Are you going to kind of, show some folks this in kind of a beta program before you roll it out?
Sure. First of all, is the screen no longer sharing?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. No sharing.
Okay, cool. Great question. There's a lot of small details around how to roll something like this out because it's a significant improvement, change, whatever, right? And I should also say that every improvement, even though it's technically a significant improvement, it's different, which means that for some people, they won't see it as an improvement, which is completely understandable. So you got to kind of like figure out how to do that. The other thing I didn't mention is we're changing the pricing model and the business model, but that's only going to apply to new customers. So existing customers, everything is the exact same for them as far as how much they pay for Basecamp. No changes there. For new customers, we're changing the pricing on that. But existing people doesn't touch them, so that everything's the same for them. The way we're rolling it out is for new customers, people who sign up for Basecamp 3, the day we launch this in a couple weeks, they will, by default, get those 3 sections turned on and some other stuff. Existing customers will only have the project section turned on because that's the least disruptive for them. We're not introducing 2 more sections that they're like, what is this, right? So we're going to explain the new stuff and then show them how to turn them on if they want. So for them, it's opt-in. For new customers, it's automatic. But for existing customers, it's opt-in, basically. So that's kind of the fundamental thing. We don't beta test things publicly. We test it pretty extensively internally. And once we're confident and comfortable with it, we roll it out to everybody. That's kind of just how we do things. And I've sort of glossed over a few things, but that's fundamentally basically the thing. I should also mention, by the way, if anyone has questions about any of this stuff, we can take questions on Twitter. So just you can tweet either Nathan or I, and we'll keep an eye out for those.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep an eye on my tweet phone, make sure everything is still working. Okay. Cool, man. That's awesome. That's a cool change. I remember talking a while ago about these types of things, and it seems like, you've really nailed it. You've like really zeroed in on like this domain well.
Yeah, we feel good about it. I think, and this is sort of this first step for us to get serious about showing people how we work, a different way of working. I think the way a lot of people work right now is manic, and we want to kind of show a different way. Basecamp 3 specifically is a radically different way of working than a lot of people are used to, and so this is step 1 of setting up the structure so people can follow or adopt or do it their own way still, but at least there's something. I've realized that that in most cases it's better to provide a path, a golden path, basically. Like if you want to know how to use Basecamp to the best of Basecamp's ability, this is how you do it. If you want to use it another way, that's entirely up to you. We've always basically been like, use it however you want, which is, of course, you can still do that. But I found that a lot of people just want some guidance. They want to know like the best way to do something. And so we're trying to do that now by building that into the product and not just assuming people will figure it out on their own or whatever. So this is step one towards really sort of making Basecamp 3 more of a way to work and not just a tool for working.
How have you tackled, so we, this is kind of a tangent, but I think there's some stuff that so we just launched a pretty big feature. We launched auto forwarding for everybody right now in Highrise. So like it's been like 2 years ago, we launched Gmail auto forwarding. So you could, anyone who's using Gmail, and there's quite a few people, can auto forward their email directly in Highrise without having to do the manually forwarding to that address. You can set up these auto forwards. And just by the nature of the technology in the product, do this for non-Gmail accounts. So we spent some time and we finally built it so that anybody, if you're using Outlook, Exchange, Outlook 365, GoDaddy, DreamHost, any of these other email servers can start using this auto forwarding into Highrise. And some challenges even in just documentation and help documentation. And it's causing me to like spend a lot more time thinking about how we do help documentation. And one of the challenges I have now is just like, there's a lot of like help documentation that we do on like, how you set up this setting. Here's how you do this particular action. It's very, not even tactical. It's very, I don't know, fundamental or whatever, but it isn't the golden path stuff. Like we're trying to do some of that and then we're trying to do it in some articles, but I'm curious, have you stumbled on like a really good way of, like, where do the articles live that talk about, here's how we, use Basecamp to, handle organizing this type of project, or, organizing, doing a web design project versus, here's how we might do it to handle how we're gonna, sell swag at a conference that's coming up.
Yeah. It's a great question. It's something I'm thinking a lot about right now too, because I think that we have a help site, okay? And our help site, similar to yours, is really more of a knowledge base. It's not really, I might get in trouble for saying some of this, but like it says, it's not really helpful to customers. It's helpful for us to send a link to something to a customer if there's a very precise, like, how do I do this, or how do I set up that, or how do I upgrade, or how do I downgrade? Like it's very
exactly
tactical, right? It's a knowledge base. It's a traditional knowledge base, right?
Yeah.
But for example, our help site is not helpful if your question is like, hey, what's the best way to catch up if I've been out of the office for 3 hours? Like, and this is something everyone has to deal with. Like I go to work and I'm out of the office for 4 hours and I come back and like, what's the best way to catch up with Basecamp, or catch up in Basecamp if I've been out for 4 hours? That is a real scenario that is not tactical in terms of, this feature in this category in this place. It's like it's a mindset, or like, what's the best way? So we just got a gig from a client. What's the best way to set up the project on day one? Or we just had a meeting. What's the best way? Like, how would I take the stuff we discussed at the meeting and get it into Basecamp so people know what they need to do next? Like, these are things that are scenario based, that are real world based, that come from the real world, and then you want to use the tool to help you with that. They're not things like, how do I assign a to-do item, which is a tactical knowledge base thing, but not a educational workflow thing. So we're going to be working a lot on that soon, which is like these scenario-based things that people like really struggle with. So I think I think it's very different. As far as where to put those, I think we're going to make a completely different site or place for those.
Yeah.
And I think they take a different format. I mean, I think if you're going to do like a step-by-step, here's how to assign a to-do list, or to make it, or to assign a to-do, for example, that's a very like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 in this feature, in this place. But something like catching up, if you've been out of the office for a day or two, there's a variety of ways you can do that. And so like That's more about talking through the conversation, the scenario, and explaining the whole explaining it in a different way than like step 1, step 2, step 3. So I think it actually takes a different format and different feel as well. I think that for High-Rise and for Basecamp and for many products, like this is a really untapped thing. I don't see a lot of companies doing this well. I see like guides, like getting started with, or onboarding, whatever, right? But these are like these aren't everyday moments. Onboarding maybe sort of, but it's like it's not really an everyday moment. Like we just had a great conversation. How do I get this stuff in Basecamp so we can deliver on it now? Or I've been out. How do I catch up? Or how do I let my boss know everything I finished this week? Like things like that, which are very like real stuff that you have to run into all the time, that you may be doing it one way, but there's maybe a better way. Maybe you don't know how to do it at all, that kind of stuff. So I don't know, I'm sort of rambling, but I agree that this type of stuff is really important.
Yeah. I mean, we're basically in the same spot. I'm trying to figure out how to kind of pull those things up. Cause I feel like they're the most important things. Like, I don't, like right now it's like you land on our help site and you're just inundated with a bunch of stuff about, the features. And it's like, people can search for those things. If they need it, they can search for that thing. But the thing that they really need, that needs to get pulled up is like, yeah, how do you really nail, managing a sales pipeline? How do you really nail like managing a group inbox and making sure, no customers don't get ignored? And it's kind of challenging. And how do you guys
I think the trick, by the way, one of the really hard things there is not to use the product lingo, right? Like, like for example, how to use a group inbox is kind of product lingo-y, right? It's more like, how do 3 or 4 people talk to one customer and not repeat each other? Or, or like, how do you follow up with someone if your business partner's out of town? Or, that's the kind of stuff that's like, then you can show how the product can help you do that, versus like starting with the product, which is like group inboxes are good for, versus like your partner's out of town, someone calls, how do you know what they just talked about so I don't feel like an idiot? Like that's starting with the person. And I feel like if you start with the person, the help is totally different than starting with the product. In our current help site and knowledge base and similar to yours is like starting with the product. It's not starting with the person. So I want to do it the other way around.
Yep. And how do you guys go about, so we've also kind of bumped into a challenge in just even getting some of this stuff kind of documented. So how do you guys document help? So even the tactical stuff, even the knowledge-based stuff, I'm curious what you guys do. Because like we bumped into a problem recently where, we developed the solution, we needed, say, this auto forwarding, and we developed a solution, and there were some repercussions that hadn't been thoroughly, completely vetted. You can imagine there's like hundreds of different scenarios of auto forwarding mail, whether it's, from Outlook 365 or Gmail or Yahoo or, a mail client. There's dozens of those things. And so it was a very weird scenario that like not everything was tested. But then there's a job of somebody then to have to go in and document this stuff, who like, there's a weird pass off. Like there's a weird like, hey, here's this thing I developed. Now go document how to make it work. And it's just tough. I'm just curious what you guys do. Is there like how do you go about passing off a new feature to get documented for help? Or is there no pass off? Is the person who's designing the feature the one responsible for all the documentation for it?
It's a little bit of both. We're trying to get a lot better, and we've gotten a lot better at launching when we launch a new feature, to like document it and help at the same time as part of the launch. We don't always do that. Sometimes it's written by the designers, sometimes it's written by someone on QA, sometimes it's written by somebody on support. Yeah. The thing is that I still feel like that pattern that pattern populates a knowledge base.
Totally.
Yeah. It's like it populates the knowledge base, and it's easy to feel like it's like, check it off, we're done, we've explained how it works, but it's not really explaining it in context of someone's day, and so that we don't do really at all. And so I think I ideally think that should be the designer's responsibility, because they designed the feature and they should understand why they designed the feature, and then they can explain how it fits into someone's day. I think it should all be about like, how do things fit into someone's day versus how do they fit into the product?
Yeah.
As product people, it's easy just to keep thinking about like the product all the time. Even though you're making it for customers, you try to keep putting things in the context of the product, but it's really about the context of somebody's day or somebody's week or a collection of days. That's really the important part, and that's where people are coming at it from. And so, but anyway, yeah, we've gotten better, but we're still not super on top of it all the time. And even if we are technically on top of it, I just still feel like we're not really helping people. When we write this stuff up, we're helping ourselves help others, but we're not really helping them help themselves.
Yeah.
What do you guys do? I mean, how do you do it? Do you do it, or?
Well, I mean, I think we're still figuring it out. I mean, it's our original help site was written by customer support and a designer together. It's kind of fallen. The responsibility now has fallen mostly on customer support. But then I just feel like there's still like a disconnect. Yeah, there's a better job us who's building features can do in doing some of the documentation of it. But then, I still think then there's this disconnect between like announcing the product, which, you know, I did today, and I start to kind of get into more of like, why on earth would you even use something like this, to the help site, which becomes very clinical in like how to set it up. So it's still something we're figuring out.
It's hard. It's hard to get it right, because I think these like sites, like a knowledge base versus like a true helpful guide scenario thing, they actually serve different purposes. It's not that one should replace the other. You know, there are times when it's like, how do I set this up? Or how do I do this exact thing? Or, you know, what is the difference between this and that? Or that kind of stuff. And that's like knowledge base is great at that, but it's not great at like scenario based stuff, traditionally at least.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're thinking a lot about is and going to be making some videos on is contrasts. So we're included in this collection. I think a lot of companies aren't very good at drawing contrasts between what life is like with the product and without the product, or like what people are doing today versus what they could be doing tomorrow. So we'll often talk about like, well, email sucks, so therefore let's use this, that, and the other thing. It's like, well, what's why? Like, why does email suck? Well, email actually doesn't suck at a lot of things. It's bad at some things. It's really bad at, for example, if you're trying to have a conversation and you need to pull someone else in the middle of it. It's, what do you do? Forward all the threads? Like, that's crappy. Or if you're trying to have 4 or 5 discussions in parallel in different threads, like you open a thread, especially in Gmail, which is what a ton of people look at. Like, oh, you see the last reply, but you can't really see the whole conversation because they're all quoted, and it's just like you read it backwards. It's just like really hard to follow a conversation. So like, we could draw the contrast between that and a Basecamp thread, which is like the first thing's at the top, everything's at the bottom. You can see the entire conversation as it unfolded. There's no quoting, there's no things folded up and hidden. It's like, this is the whole thing, top to bottom. If anyone comes in at any time, they can just go to the same page that you're looking at, look at the top, look at the bottom, know the whole story. No, there's no other stories in between. Like, drawing the contrast between these things really helps to someone understand, go, I recognize the problem with email in this capacity. This has always bothered me about email. I don't need to replace it with something that's not the same type of communication style, but I do need to get this, that, and the other thing out of it. And like, oh, I see how this is different. So those kinds of things I think are really valuable to show the contrast. Like, here's what it's like. We understand what it's like. Here's why this is better. So I think that's also part of, like, that's again, not really knowledge-based, traditionally knowledge-based kind of stuff. It's more of guide, tutorial, scenario-based, contrast-based. I don't know what this whole thing's going to be called or what the collection of stuff is, but we're going to work on some quick videos for that as well.
Yeah, interesting. Are you going to nail that for the rollout, you think, then, of this new stuff, or is that just going to happen kind of gradually?
That'll happen later.
Got it.
We're rolling out like a new sort of video to sort of show some stuff, but Ryan and I are going to be working on these little quick, or just call them quick hits, which is like, here's what sucks about this. Like if you're doing it this way, here's you probably know what's bad about it. We're going to repeat it so we can tell we're on the same page. And here's how you can do it in Basecamp instead. Or like if you're working like this, here are the issues with it. Here's why you're probably feeling anxious, or you're probably having problems with that. And like, here's another way to handle it using Basecamp. So like, we're going to kind of hit some of these quick hits, maybe a handful of them to start. I don't know when we'll roll them out. We'll roll them out whenever we get to them, soon, hopefully. And then, build on that over time. It's kind of the plan, but we can't get it all done in time, because we're also redoing the whole marketing site. So like there's a lot of work happening all at once in 8 weeks, basically 8 to 10 weeks. So
yeah, cool, dude. We're out of time already.
Oh man, I feel bad. I dominated the whole conversation.
No, it's all good. Let's keep doing these.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So I mean, 1 week. I think we're trying to keep a 1 week schedule at least.
Yep, 1 week. I am available next Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, today's Thursday. I can do next Wednesday too, either one.
Wednesday is going to work for me. Thursday won't. So let's try next Wednesday then.
Thursday or Wednesday. Next Wednesday, the 5th, right? 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Done. Talk to you then, my friend. All right.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in again to Work in Progress. It was awesome to have you with us again. And please subscribe so you get a notification when we start doing these, hopefully more often again.
Awesome. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Cool. See you, man.
Later,
have a great afternoon.
Okay. You too.
Later.